Kia ora, good morning. So, I wanted to do this video, this podcast, whatever it is, I don't know. I wanted to do this because I left a comment on a video on YouTube and it's bothering me because I'm actually really quite disgusted and grossed out by the way that these people targeted this poor kid like he was a serial killer or something. And it's something that needs to be addressed because people like this, who have these vicious, nasty, insular opinions on other people who dare step outside the box and be a nonconformist, is disgusting. And it's the reason why we're losing so many young people to things like suicide and addiction. I want to talk about Jaden Smith and the comments that people are leaving, saying that he needs mental health treatment, he needs mental help, because he dares to go out not dressed like everybody else, because he dares to try and be a trailblazer in the world of fashion, because he dares to march to the beat of his own drum, and that terrifies people. Why does it terrify people? Because they're afraid to think outside the box. The majority of the world's population are so codependent on social media and their governments and their influencers telling them what to think and how to feel, that when someone comes along who steps outside the box and says, I'm going to do my own thing, you do you, I'm going to do me, it freaks them out. Like animals around a watering hole, when they sense danger, they scatter and it freaks them out, and they, like Homer's sperm, banging into each other in a frenzy. The way people were tearing this poor kid down simply because he went out with his pet iguana on his shoulder, simply because he wore kooky clothes and dyed his hair pink and his eyebrows blonde and that. I mean, what the hell? If people hadn't have been brave enough to think outside the box in history, we wouldn't have rap music, we wouldn't have the punk era, we wouldn't have the glam, the glam movement. Remember with like T-Rex and all that, and like Duran Duran, men walking around with makeup on, Boy George and that. They thought outside the box, and people slaughtered them for it. Because nonconformity spooks people who aren't brave enough to think for themselves. The majority of the world's population are so insecure and so irrelevant and mundane and routine. Get up, do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Follow the trend. If somebody's saying that and everybody's saying it, then we all say it. That's bullshit. That's why we don't evolve. That's why we're not evolving. We will never advance. We're actually not advancing. People might think, oh yes, space flight and all this technology and blah, blah, blah. But what's it doing? It's not actually evolving us. It's pulling us backwards. You know why? Because we're still fighting wars. Just because you have the best technology to fight a war doesn't mean that you're advancing. It means you're going backwards, because we're supposed to be beyond the point of having wars. Wars should be fought in the boardroom and courtroom, not in the battlefield. But now there's a new kind of war, and that's the war of the mundane and the flock attacking those who dare to venture out on their own. Those who say, I don't want to be like you. Why the hell would I want to be like you? You're boring. People who sit around curtain twitching, watching everybody else live their lives in the four corners of their room, on their phones and their laptops and that, judging other people for daring to be different. And it's gross. It's not Jaden Smith you need to look at, guys. It's yourselves. If you're sitting there judging other people for daring to be different and not wanting to be like everybody else, the problem isn't with them, the problem is with you. You're not brave. Fortune favours the bold. Or fortune favours the brave, however you want to say it. But we don't advance from an evolutionary standpoint without something, without someone, without one cell, without one atom daring to break away from the norm, to find itself, and that's all he's doing. When did we stop losing the right to find ourselves? Are we supposed to go back to the 1940s and 50s when 17-year-olds looked like 40-year-olds? Because that's not evolvement. That's not how we evolve. And when we are forcing our children and our young people to confine to the norms of social media's reality and the individual stuck in their own boring little insular lives reality, we will never advance in any way, shape or form. People making a big deal about going up into the stratosphere and calling it space flight. One of the video clips saying about Katy Perry going to the edge of space. She didn't go to the edge of space. She didn't. So going to the edges of the universe. She didn't go to the edges of the universe. They went up in the stratosphere and rode above the stratosphere. That's not space flight. That's space travel. They went up into the stratosphere and travelled. Like, it's pretty much how international flight is going to be in the future. Instead of getting on a plane and flying from New York to Paris on a normal plane, you'll go up in what Katy Perry and that went up in to do it, because it won't take as long. That's not space travel. They're not astronauts. It's space flight. They took a flight above the stratosphere in the space between the universe and planet Earth. I'm appalled at the way people sit around being armchair journalists and armchair critics and armchair judges of people they know nothing about, simply because somebody did an article with an opinion on someone they know nothing about, or because they found someone a little quirky and odd because they wore different shoes. Odd shoes. So what? Fashion trends. He might be trying to start a fashion trend, and he's not the first person to go out wearing different shoes to start a fashion trend. Why the hell do we have to all be like you? Who the hell would want to be like you? Who would want to be like you? Do you have a life? Because clearly you don't. People who have lives don't care about what other people think. And when you sit and worry about the judgment of others, when you sit like a gaggle of geese or like a clutch of hens, picking, like those crows on The View and Loose Women and all that, which is why I'm doing Loose Lips on the Art of Creation animated TV series. It's taking the piss out of them. Hens, picking, pick. Same routine over and over again. Sleep in the coop, get up, lay the eggs, pick at the ground, go back into their coop. Same thing over and over and over again. Well, what are you doing? What are you doing to make a difference? What are you doing to stand out? Or is that the problem? You don't want to stand out? Do you not have the confidence to stand out on your own? Because people who have the confidence to stand out don't care about the judgment of others. We're not looking for your approval. We don't care what you think. Your opinion means nothing to us because you are of no importance to us. And that's the attitude that trailblazers need to take. If you're a little bit weird, if you're a little bit different, if you stand out from the crowd, if you think outside the box and people are judging you, screw them. Let them judge you. Give them something to judge. Give them something to talk about. Because while you're off doing your thing and making a name for yourself as the odd, weird, kooky one who shines a little bit brighter than the other stars who are dimming themselves by keeping themselves insular and needing to have the approval of everybody else, that the processing plant, like a factory that just keeps punting out the same thing over and over and over again. That's society. These are the people who are judging the ones who dare to come out with a different brand, or dare to come out to change the colour of an Oreo. Everyone wants to be the Oreo. Everybody gets, on the production line, just the same thing, being punted out, pulled out, processed, same thing over and over and over. Carbon copies of each other. How boring. If we all lived like those people judging Jaden Smith, nothing would get done, nothing would get invented, nothing new would be created. We would not be going to the edge of space, the real space, not the fake space that they tried to pull off in that giant penis of that little Amazon midget. Actual space, going to, you know, to the edges of the universe and all of that, like, without the nonconformists, without the people who are brave enough to stand up and stand out of the crowd, nothing would be done. Architecture would still be the same as it was from like the 1920s and 30s, which actually wouldn't be a bad thing. But we wouldn't have modern hospitals. We wouldn't have the museums that we have that are interactive. We wouldn't have anything that we have that's educational, that's fashion based, that's design based, that's entertainment based, if we just stayed the same. And when someone comes along who's a little bit different, like the animals at the watering hole, when someone comes along that's a little bit different, they all like panic, like their brain triggers fear and danger. So they all, you know, do that thing of birds of a feather flock together. You know, sheep, the reason why sheep are in herds is because it's safer. Sheep are safer in herds than they are on their own, so that they don't get picked out by the wolves and the predators. But the trouble is, if you all stick together and stay as one, you're never going to find out what's on the other side of that mountain. You're never going to find out what's on the other side of that forest. You're never going to find new lands and new countries and new waters. You're never going to find it. It's the navigators, it's the ones who were brave enough to leave Africa, that we have people all over the world now. It's the ones who were brave enough to get on the boats and travel those waters that we have Maoris, and we have Vikings, and we have Americans, and we have Mesoamericans, and we have Asian people, and, you know, because they were brave. Fortune favours the bold. Fortune favours the brave, however you want to say it. Some say bold, some say brave. Fortune favours the bold. Fortune favours the brave. Anyway, semantics. It annoys me. See, this is why I have to build the foundation, because it's kids like Jaden Smith who are going to be coming to me to learn how to be filmmakers and broadcasters and, you know, TV presenters and actors and actresses and singers and writers and game designers and programmers and coders and, you know, set builders and roadies and all of that. These are the people, all these people that I've mentioned, you know, the... God. The Jim Morrisons, the Boy Georges, the Madonnas. I mean, I'm not a fan of Madonna, but you know what I mean? She was different. She came along and she was something different, and it freaked people out. Cyndi Lauper, any of the fashion designers. Oh God, like the Sex Pistols, you know, when they had their interview in the 70s and they were swearing and stuff, and they were pushed to swear, and everyone had their outrage, and people were like, ban them, oh my God, this is disgusting, and don't let them have their concerts, and, you know, burn their albums and stuff like that, and now everybody swears. People need to sort themselves out. People need to work on themselves instead of judging other people. People need to work on themselves and think for themselves instead of allowing other people to think for them, because that's gross. That's weakness. You don't know how to be yourself. You don't know who you are, and you don't know how to be who you are because you don't know how to think for yourself. You're the weak one. You're the one that has the mental insecurities. You're the one with the psychological issues, not the people who are brave enough to think outside the box. So before you start pointing fingers at other people and judging people you don't know, look at yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and judge you first. Work on you before you try and figure other people out that you will never meet, that you know nothing about, that you will never know the true story behind, because you've never given yourself the chance to get to know that person as an individual. So leave him alone. Leave Jaden Smith alone. Leave these kids alone and let them be the moulders and movers and shakers of the next generation, and support them and guide them in a way that when they do step into their own and they find their own individual power and their own individual strength and their own personalities, they're doing it the right way, where they're then becoming inspirations to their next generation. Because our generation, the generation that is currently existing, tearing kids like Jaden Smith to shreds, we're pathetic. Since social media came about and everybody's concerned about the likes, shares and subscribes, people have become like the society's become like a circus where everybody's putting on an act in order to get the attention of the crowd. But you need to remember, it's the freaks that were the draw to the show. It was the freaks everybody came to see, and the freaks are the ones that stand out the most. And people, their curiosity is getting the better of them, because all it's doing is making them look bitter and jealous and envious, which is a psychological issue. Why are you so afraid of somebody standing out? Is it because you're not brave enough to stand out as well? We all have gifts and talents. What if you pursued those gifts and talents and then it made you stand out from the crowd? What if what you've designed or created is a little bit different and a little bit better and a little bit more perfected than something that is already out on the market, but you're too afraid to do it because you're scared of what other people will say or think, because you don't want people looking at you? That's your problem, not Jaden Smith's. Don't put your insecurities and project your crap onto a kid who's brave enough to try and be a little bit different from everybody else in Hollywood, because everybody else in Hollywood is a carbon copy. But when somebody comes along who's growing up in Hollywood or in that Hollywood set, who's a little bit different, everybody tears them to pieces. Well, I say brava, Jaden Smith. Brava. Keep doing what you're doing, because one day you're going to come out with something that's going to take the world by storm, and then everybody will realize why God made you to be different to everybody else, because the chosen, the ones who are here to make a difference in the world, aren't like anybody else in the world. That's why they're called the chosen. And that's what the problem is. People are jealous and bitter and envious of the fact that God isn't singling them out to be different, to be the chosen one. That God or their ancestors in the universe hasn't chosen them to be the trailblazer. It takes courage and it takes guts, not criticism. Instead of tearing these people down, how about building them up instead? Be a master maker, not a master manipulator. Because the thing is, these kids are watching all the stuff that you're saying, and you're leading them to the drugs and alcohol. You're leading them to the fetishes. You're leading them to the self-hatred and the self-bullying and the suicide attempts and all of that. You're responsible for that, every single one of you. Society, as well as the parents, are to blame for everything that is wrong with the youth for today. You can't just blame the parents, you have to blame yourself as well, because we live in a social media electronic world. These people, especially these famous ones, they see what you're saying and it chips away at their confidence. That's disgusting. If somebody did that to you, you'd be the first one to launch a lawsuit. You'd be the first one to launch a defamation lawsuit. You'd be the first ones to cry and jump up and down and take to social media saying, Jaden Smith is picking on me. Jaden Smith said this. So what? Get over yourself. If you're an adult and you consider yourself to be a mature, responsible, intelligent, grounded person, you don't tear kids down who are trying to forge a name for themselves in fashion or in the entertainment industry, who are a little bit different to everybody else. Look at yourself in the mirror before you look at other people. Nobody has the right to judge or criticize anybody else if they're not, if they're choosing to be in a codependent relationship with social media and everybody else on it. Made me so mad, because I'm building a school. I've worked my ass off. I've sacrificed so much to build what I have built. That when I get the money, I want to just take these kids and I want to shelter them and I want to give them a place where I can plant them in their plant pots and water them with everything that they need to allow them to grow into whatever bloody thing that they want. If I plant a seed for an oak tree and it decides it wants to be a rose bush, then so be it. It's the way that God intended it to be. But one thing I won't be doing is encouraging these kids to care about what everybody else thinks once they leave the comfort and the safety of my foundation and the world knows their music or their shows or their games or whatever it is they've worked on. I'm going to be teaching these kids to give zero foxes about what other people think of them, because they're the stars. They're the ones that are shining bright in the sky that everybody else is looking up at. The people who were looking up at them weren't brave enough to hoist themselves up into the sky in order to be the stars. So I'm going to be teaching all of these kids, when they step away from the loving embrace of my care and protection, they're going to be so strong and confident, they're going to brush these people off like water off a duck's back. They're not even going to care, because I'm already taking them out of their homes and their schools and their society and their towns and villages where people judge them anyway. By the time they get these kids back, they better watch out, because these kids are going to come landing down on them like a rocket blast, going off into space. So get ready, because the kids that I'm going to be looking after, when they leave the foundation to step out onto their own, I'm going to have a sky full of stars who are shining so bright that the people looking up at them and judging them will have to cover their eyes, because their shine will blind them. So I'm just putting it out there. It made me mad, because, you know, I would go to war for anybody. I would go to war against anybody who dare spoke like that about my children. Any of my children, whether I gave birth to them or not, because these kids that come to me at the foundation, they're going to be my kids. I'm Mama Bear. I will be their Mama Bear. They will be coming into my den. They will be my cubs, every single one of them. No matter the country, no matter the colour, no matter the religion, the second they step foot in my foundation, they're mine. They're my cubs, and I will protect them for all it is worth against people like you who are sitting judging kids like Jaden Smith, because it's disgusting. If anybody was talking to your kids, your nieces and nephews, your grandkids, the way you're talking about Jaden Smith, you'd be the first one to be up in arms about it. So why isn't it good enough for you, but it's good enough for them? They can take your shit, but you won't take theirs. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. It's got me riled up. That's why I can't think straight. I'm firing it off because I'm so mad. He's a child. You don't grow up until you're in your 40s. I'm sorry, but it's true. You don't get to your mature. You don't start becoming mature until you're in your 40s. Anything under 40 is still a child. 30s is the in-between. It's when you're starting to settle down and relax and find yourself. By the time you get to your 40s, you've found yourself. You're comfortable with who you are. Well, you're supposed to be. I know plenty of neurotic, lazy people in their 40s who won't think for themselves, but who need the approval of others in order to exist every day. But anyone under the age of 30 is a child. And if you're criticising anyone under the age of 30 and you're over the age of 30, then shame on you, because what goes around comes around. And I can guarantee you, most of you are going to have kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews and young cousins and that who are being treated exactly the same as Jaden Smith. So what you're putting out is coming back to you and yours. And it's your own fault. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to let kids like Jaden Smith be made to feel like crap because of your insecurities. It's disgusting. You need to grow up. It's gross. Get a life, get a clue, get a grip, and be a part of the solution, not the problem. Because we are not evolving, we are going backwards. With the way all these world leaders are acting at the moment, especially towards people like Vladimir Putin, we're not evolving. Don't ever think for 1 second that we are advancing or that we're in an advanced stage. Just because Thailand's got robot cops doesn't mean that they're in the future. It means they're going backwards, because we shouldn't even be needing robot cops. If you're running your country properly, if you're keeping your people happy and doing the right thing, you wouldn't need robot cops. Robot cops are for lazy people who don't want to do the job themselves. It's not an efficiency thing. It's not to save money. It's laziness. It's laziness and greed. That's not an advancement. That's not advancing in civilization. That's not evolving. That's going backwards. So just be it on your heads. That's all I'm saying, because we are in the end of days. We are in the final days of judgment this year. This year is all about everybody being held accountable for their own actions. We are in the days of judgment. And everybody's actions, like Zelensky and Starmer and Macron and Trump and Musk and every single person, from the smallest to the largest in power, are all being judged by God and their ancestors this year. So I've been telling people, be very, very careful what you say and do this year, because your karmic points are being tallied up. And God and Satan are here right now on earth, right now, going after everybody that has karmic debt to pay off, and gossiping and judging and tearing people down and criticizing, which means to tear strips of flesh off the body. The word criticize means to tear strips of flesh off. It was a torture technique. To criticize someone was a torture technique, because you tore strips of flesh off them. It's a sin. It's a vice, not a virtue. It is a deadly sin. And all sins are being tallied up in the world at the moment, and you will all pay in one form or another in your own little insular lives for everything that you're putting out on social media. So be responsible for your own actions and stop worrying about other people. God, it makes me so mad. This is why I'm building my foundation. This is why I get the new Hollywood, because I get to do it right. I'm going to show people how to treat these kids with talent the right way. See what happens, because Hollywood's going to burn down once the foundation starts putting our stuff out. I'm telling you now. Poor Jaden.